In this microlesson, you'll learn how to set up your action bar for PVM. A microlesson is a short and to-the-point video guide that teaches you about RuneScape. This time, one of our combat and PVM experts, Thaxi, who you may have heard on the podcast before, is going to teach us how to build action bars.
Action bars can be set up in-game with a default that'll get you going, but is less than optimal. Today, we'll aim to set up an action bar for each combat style that will provide good damage output and set you on the path to making further upgrades down the road. The order of your abilities is the single most important part of doing damage in RuneScape, and it can make or break how your combat goes, but it can also seem like a pretty complicated black box. The goal of this lesson will be to break that down into simple priorities and give you the tools to feel confident building and adjusting your own action bars. We're going to start with Revolution. Revolution automatically fires off abilities left to right with whatever is off cooldown going first. We're going to assume that's active and allow it to activate ultimates and thresholds. First and foremost, your bar must prioritize the abilities that will deal the most damage. Determining how powerful an ability can be is complicated and depends in part on how many targets it can hit and how quickly the damage comes out. We've created a basic ranking for you that you can find in the description below. Here are the basic abilities for a two-handed magic bar, ordered from strongest to weakest. And the question you ask at this point is, why don't we have these abilities in this order on a regular bar? The answer to this is that, as listed, this bar will sometimes not have any abilities off cooldown, meaning we resort to very weak auto attacks. Which brings us to the second part of making a good action bar, ensuring something is always off cooldown. Here, we've accomplished that very simply by moving a shorter cooldown ability, in this case Sonic Wave, one slot earlier on the bar. Because it has a shorter cooldown, it will activate more often, stalling the later abilities on this bar and allowing stronger abilities to come off cooldown without having to use our weakest abilities in the meantime. On its own, this is a pretty good bar. This is effectively what I use when I want to play a bit more actively. But if you're wanting to AFK, there's a few more steps to build into this bar. We have a lot of adrenaline and we need to think about spending that. The thing to remember here is that adrenaline is damage, and at 100% adrenaline, you stop earning more from your abilities. So it's important to add thresholds to spend that adrenaline. We've done that here, keeping in mind you still want to put abilities in order of strength. For example, this bar shows deep impact after Dragon Breath, reflecting the average damage of those abilities. This is generally the ability bar I'd use to AFK a Slayer task. Spending more adrenaline on thresholds versus ultimates gives you a more even damage output across your rotation, because you don't have that power trough when building back to 50% adrenaline after you use an ultimate. With that said, if I've got a big chunky target in front of me, a damage boosting ultimate will absolutely increase my damage output. So let's talk about what that looks like in an ability bar. When using ultimates, you try to activate them as close to their cooldown as possible. On a Revolution bar that includes an ultimate, it's important you don't have too many thresholds leeching away adrenaline and delaying you from using that ultimate. In this case, we've removed our weakest threshold, that's deep impact, in order to fire off the Sunshine more often. As a review, our goal is to fire off our strongest ability available, to avoid auto-attacking, and to use the adrenaline we have to avoid sitting at 100%. Here are a set of finished action bars using the basic abilities available to each of the other styles. But you should feel empowered to create and adjust your ability bars as you unlock more advanced ability options. And you can do that really simply by following what we've done in this lesson. The first thing you'll do is to place your new ability on your bar based on its power. Then just go to a combat dummy and let your bar run. See if you reach the end of your bar, and if you do, adjust those powerful but low cooldown abilities a slot earlier on your bar to compensate. Then, see if you spend more than a few abilities at 100% adrenaline out of every minute, and if so, add in another threshold to use that extra adrenaline. This method should work for any combination of unlocks, and hopefully clears up some of the confusion about how to build a good ability rotation. Please note, this microlesson is intentionally brief. The points laid out in this lesson are general rules, and there are caveats and exceptions to each of them with more advanced combat. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to add them in the comments below. And if you found this video useful, like and subscribe.